Hello, friends. Imagine boarding a plane with your teammates and family, excited for a trip, only to find yourself fighting for your life in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. This is the incredible true story of the miracle of the Andes. On October 12, 1972, a small chartered aircraft took off from Uruguay, heading to Santiago, Chile. On board was a rugby team, their friends and family, 45 people in total. The flight path crossed the massive Andes Mountains, a journey that should have taken just a few hours. But a sudden storm forced them to land overnight in Argentina. The next day, October 13th, the pilots believed the weather had improved and took off again. For an hour, everything was smooth. But then, as they began their descent, disaster struck. Thick clouds swallowed the plane and severe turbulence shook it violently. Visibility dropped to zero. Alarms blared and warning lights flashed. When they finally broke through the clouds, a horrifying sight met their eyes. They were flying straight into a mountain. The pilots pulled up desperately, but it was too late. The tail of the aircraft hit the mountain, ripping off and sending passengers flying through the air. A second impact tore off a wing. The front section of the fuselage then slammed onto a glacier, sliding down at nearly 350 kilometers per hour before crashing to a stop. The wreckage came to rest at over 3,500 meters high, deep in a remote snowy valley nearly 80 kilometers off course. Miraculously, 33 people survived the initial crash. Many were badly injured and all were lost and terrified. Two young medical students on board, Roberto Canessa and Gustavo de Zabino, immediately started tending to the wounded. One survivor, Fernando Parado, lay in a coma with a severe head injury. Search and rescue teams from 3 countries were deployed, but spotting the white plane against the vast, snow-covered mountains was like finding a needle in a haystack. In the following days, more of the injured succumbed to their wounds and the extreme cold. Temperatures at night plummeted to minus 30 degrees Celsius. The survivors huddled inside the broken fuselage, using luggage and snow to block the gaping holes, creating a makeshift shelter. They saw search planes flying overhead, but their frantic attempts to signal for help were all in vain. Then came the devastating news. 8 days after the crash, they managed to fix a small radiator. A voice announced that the official search had been called off. The world had given them up for dead. They were completely alone. Their meager food supplies were almost gone. At that altitude, there were no plants, no animals, nothing to eat. They faced a slow, certain death from starvation. After days of agonizing debate and moral turmoil, they made a decision that would haunt them forever. To survive, they would have to consume the bodies of their deceased friends. It was a heart-wrenching choice, born from the most desperate of circumstances. Just as they were grappling with this grim reality, another catastrophe struck. An avalanche thundered down the mountain, burying the fuselage in snow. 8 more people were killed, leaving only 19 survivors trapped in the dark, suffocating tomb. For days, they clawed their way through the snow, finally breaking free into the blinding white landscape. This was the final straw. They realized that waiting for rescue was not an option. If they were going to live, they had to save themselves. Three of the strongest survivors, Fernando Parrado, who had miraculously recovered from his coma, Roberto Nessa, and Antonio Vicentin, decided to attempt the impossible: to trek out of the Andes to find help. With no proper gear, wearing layers of salvaged clothing, they set out into the frozen wilderness. They faced brutal cold, thin air that made every breath a struggle, and complete exhaustion. After a few days of climbing, Vicentin turned back to conserve food for the group. Parrado and Canessa pushed on for 10 grueling days. They walked, climbed, and crawled across the unforgiving terrain, covering over 60 kilometers. Then, finally, a sign of hope. They saw signs of human life, discarded can, some livestock. On December 20th, they stumbled upon a Chilean farmer, Sergio Catalan, across a rushing river. He couldn't hear them, but he understood their desperation. He threw them a piece of paper and a pen, and they wrote down who they were. The farmer rode for hours to alert the authorities. On December 22nd, 1972, staggering 72 days after the crash, rescue helicopters finally arrived. The remaining 16 survivors were saved. They were suffering from severe malnutrition, dehydration, and frostbite, but they were alive. Every single one of them eventually recovered. Their story became a global phenomenon, a testament to the incredible power of the human spirit, the will to live, and the unbreakable bonds of hope and friendship in the face of impossible odds. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as moving as I did, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories of survival and human resilience. We'll see you in the next one.